All right, welcome back to On Tap Bets. I'm Joey Ricotta. Sorry for the lack of show last week as we are restructuring things a little bit. Iowa Zach won't be joining me on the show. Absolutely no hard feelings. Sometimes life gets in the way and you've just got a lot going on, and that's kind of the situation that we have right now going on. But definitely, if you're listening to or watching this, Zach, we hope to have you on. I would like to have you on in the future as a guest or whatever the case may be. So, but yeah, hopefully one of these days we can make that happen. With that said, I have on Joe Marras. It's the Joe and Joe show here tonight. And yeah, man, I'm excited to dive into some of these games and talk about some bets we like. How are you doing, brother?
Good. Yeah, it's nice to talk about some football. I mean, once you hit Friday, that's what you look forward to, is the weekend of football.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's something I feel like I look forward to all week. After the games get done, you kind of need like a refresher, a little bit of a breather on Mondays, but we still have the Monday night game every week, Monday Night Football. But it feels like we kind of need that little bit of a breather, especially for me on Tuesday. It's more of a fantasy football waiver wire day.
Yep.
But other than that, it's kind of nice to get a little break. Lately, we've had some nice action going on with college football, so that's been fun. But yeah, man, it is great to have you on here, and I'm excited to get this going. I think we've got a pretty good slate of games here on both sides of the board with college and with NFL, and some marquee matchups. And we've picked out a select few that we want to talk about. And I'm interested to hear your take on some of this. I guess we can just kind of start out right there and. Let's dive in here. We can go ahead and start with college. I'll start with the Saturday slate. Michigan State, number 7. I'm by the way, when I give these numbers and these rankings, it's by the College Football Playoff Committee rankings, because I feel like at this time of year it's a little bit more important to go off of that, considering everything. Instead of the AP top 25 or whatever. But we have number 7 Michigan State. Sparty is traveling to Ohio State. And Ohio State is minus, I believe it moved up, actually. I think it's minus 20 right now. I don't know if you're looking at it at all, but I didn't recheck these numbers before we hopped on, and I probably should have done that. It's a little tough to do both at the same time, but over-under of 68.5. So I will go ahead and let you kick this one off, Joe. What do you think about this game?
I mean, that's just an absolute crazy number for a top 10 matchup. I understand, Ohio State is just a wagon, and you could totally see them covering 19, but wow, is that an insane number. Total is up. So right now it's at 9. It's still at 19. Total is at 69.5. And I mean, those are just tough numbers, man. When you think, excluding Ohio State, and you think Big Ten, you think low scoring games. Even with Michigan State, I mean, they could put some points on the board, but not like Ohio State can. It's just an insane number, man, for a top 10 matchup. 19 points is incredible. But, I mean, both these teams control their own destiny. Both these teams can make the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's exciting to see how this is going to play out. Same thing with the rest. I mean, Michigan, too, in the Big Ten. They control their own destiny. It's just a matter of when you got the other team on the field, you got to beat them. So we're just going to have to see how it plays out. 19, I don't know what I expected the number to be. I didn't expect it to be 19.
No, I didn't either. I guess kind of what I make this line. So I do something every week, at least. I've been starting to do this more and more, is I do an average consensus line, which is basically I take 5 power ratings from different outlets, and then I do a consensus line. I put together basically my own line instead of just creating my own line, which I could by what I would think that the game should be at. But I like to go off this consensus line, and then I kind of work my way down and I look at, the matchup at hand and how I think it's going to play out and where I find the edges at. The average that I found was minus 17.5, basically. So you're right there. And I agree with you that this is probably a little bit too many points, but I also feel like it's deservedly so when you look at just how these teams are and what they're coming in like, and just the numbers behind everything. So I don't know. I guess with that said, what do you where are you at though? Like, you think it's too many points? Does that mean you're on the Michigan State side, or does it? Or yeah, where'd you land on this?
Oh, it's tough. I mean, Ohio State, their offense is absolutely incredible, and you can see this game if Ohio State, especially at home, gets off to a quick start. I mean, you could see them just coasting to a 3-touchdown win. But this kind of feels like Michigan State. They had that. They beat Michigan, nice come from behind win, and then they follow that up with that absolute blunder to Purdue, and then they come back and have a nice win against Maryland. What do you like? I don't know. I'm not sure how to make or what to make of Michigan State with all that stuff, but I like betting. I always lean towards betting favorites, but seeing 19 is tough, especially against Michigan State. But Ohio State did just absolutely demolish Purdue.
Yeah.
So if I was gonna pick anything from here, I'm gonna go with Ohio State just because I trust them more, but I don't know how much I like it.
I feel you. So I assume this is one that you were actually leaving off of your card, but that's where you're leaning then.
Right. I mean, this is one of the games that's a top 10 matchup. It's a marquee matchup of the weekend, but it's just this might be one of those ones where you kind of just watch and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, look at Michigan State right now. They're preparing to pay former Bears defensive coordinator a huge contract. It sounds like I believe I saw 10 years, $95 million or something like that. I could be wrong about the actual specifics.
I actually heard it's going to be over like 100.
Oh, really? Okay,
I think so.
That's even more insane. Not saying he doesn't deserve it. He's done an incredible job with Michigan State, but it's just a wild contract when you look at a lot of other college coaches. No, so I mean, this is a huge game, obviously, for Sparty. They basically own their own destiny. They went out, they're in the Big Ten championship, right? I mean, you talk about the implications there. At Ohio State, same deal. So, and they're favored by the playoff committee, as they are always every year, and they will be moving forward. So they're basically a shoo-in to be in that playoff. Obviously, Kenneth Walker's been incredible. The biggest thing in this game, though, for me, honestly, is Michigan State's passing defense. Now, the way C.J. Stroud in this offense has been really getting going lately, I mean, I think Sparty's in big trouble here. I think Peyton Thorne, there's a chance that he exposes the Ohio State secondary a little bit, but I think they've been a little bit better recently. Although Aiden O'Connell, I think he had a little bit of success against them, but Ohio State, they rank 100th in passing yards per game allowed. So that is there for Peyton Thorne if they can take advantage of that. Will they? I don't know. And they also have they have a much more balanced attack than Purdue does with, Purdue doesn't have as much of a running game as Michigan State with Kenneth Walker. Michigan State, though, dead last in passing yards per game allowed, 350 per game allowed. And they are coming into this game in terrible shape. They've allowed 430 passing yards per game over their last 3 games. So I'm looking at this.
Right. I mean, you think about the 2 receivers that Ohio State has. I mean, 3. You got Olave, blanking on names, Wilson, right? Garrett
Wilson. Yep.
And who was the guy last week had a big game? I can't remember his name.
I forget how to pronounce it. It's Jackson Smith. Yeah.
Right. I mean, he had a big game too. I mean, those guys are premier receivers. And you're going up against a terrible passing defense. Like, that just does not match up well. And Ohio State's kind of finding their top running back with Henderson.
Oh, yeah.
You could see them. If they can get out to a big lead, they could sit on it. But it's hard to sit on a 3-touchdown lead by just running the ball,
Right. And that's the thing, though. Will they need to? Because, sitting on it for them, they could even use Henderson as well. He's a pretty good receiving back. So it's like sitting on it for them. You give it to Henderson, who's, by the way, second in the nation in rushing yards, just behind Lou Nichols, who Lou Nichols has played one more game than him because they played earlier this week. So, I'm just looking at this and I'm like, and Henderson's third, or sorry, I was actually thinking of Kenneth Walker when I was talking about the rushing yards. Henderson, though, been better than Kenneth Walker as far as a per carry basis, third in the country, averaging 7.3 yards per carry. So I don't know. I'm leaning Ohio State here. That's kind of where I'm leaning, but I'm not. It's not something I feel great about. I've learned my mistake from last week. I bet Purdue because I thought it was too many points, and sure enough, it turned out not to be enough points. So I've learned my mistake there. I'm not betting against Ohio State at this point in the season, but I'm considering actually Ohio State's team total over.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite bet in this game, which I hope you can find it still out there because right before we hopped on here, I was able to grab it. CJ Stroud over 311 and a half passing yards. And I found that on DraftKings at minus 115. So
that's 30 yards or 25 yards less than what they give up a game. I mean, that seems like a shoo-in, especially if Michigan State can keep it somewhat close. But you think if you can get Michigan State off their running game, I mean, they lose their best player.
Right.
So I can see the path for Ohio State minus 19 more than I can for Michigan State.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad we're in agreement there because I think it was, I hate looking at these super large spreads when it's such a big, important game like this, especially a conference game.
Right.
With implications on the line. And I don't want it to be a blowout. That's why it makes me not want to bet Ohio State, but that's the only way I could even see playing this game if you're playing on the spread at least.
I agree.
So with that said, let's move on here. We got next game. We've got number 10 Wake Forest at Clemson, and Clemson was minus 4.5 favorite. I believe maybe you can correct me on that. Could you do me a favor? Maybe pull up the Vegas spreads.
Sure, I got it.
Yeah, because I know a lot of this is changing as we're on the fly here, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot while we're on here, but let's see. So we finished talking about the number one scoring offense in the country and continue with the second-ranked team in points per game, and that's Wake Forest, 44.7 points per game. Wake Forest, they've been just like nobody's business putting it up behind Sam Hartman. The travel to take on Clemson, ranking third in points per game allowed, just over 15 per game allowed. So this is going to be a real test for Wake Forest here, given that they're playing this solid of a defense. And it's also going to be a test for the Clemson defense to be able to stop them. Clemson ranks 32nd in passing yards per game allowed, which is really good, just over 200 per. They do an even better job stopping the run, 18th in rushing yards allowed per game. Wake Forest, on the other hand, 81st in passing yards per game allowed and 114th in rushing yards per game allowed. So I'm looking at this and I'm wondering, does this line make sense here? And I think it does to an extent, just because Clemson is I don't know. Clemson's 106th in passing yards per game as offense. I mean, and they're under 200 yards per game with DJ Uiagalelei. I know I screw up his name. I butcher it every time. Ukulele to me, that's just what I'm going to stick with. But they should get Will Shipley back for this game, which should be good for the running game.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Walk me through this. What do you?
I completely agree with you that I'm not. It's a weird line. You're just at the surface level. You're like, top-rated offense going to play Clemson after Clemson's having probably the most disappointing year of any team in the country.
Yeah, and Wake Forest is having a great year on the other side.
But at the same time, like you said, I'm not surprised that Clemson is favorites, but I would have probably expected to see it more around just a point maybe. I don't see a situation where it's 4.5. I mean, could, if it was under a field goal, I wouldn't be as shocked. And because it doesn't make sense to me, I would lean towards Clemson just because it makes no sense. I mean,
yeah,
I think at home you can expect the defense to hold more than you would expect the opposing team's offense to show up. But at the same time, I mean, when you're second, they're averaging 44 points a game. That's no joke. And it's immovable object versus unstoppable force kind of thing. Who's going to win this battle? I don't know. But Clemson, again, I mean, they're coming off a massive win just as far as point differential to Connecticut. Obviously, UConn stinks. It's no shock. But they're kind of finding their offensive game a little bit. The last 3 games, 30, 30, and 44. I mean, they're kind of finding it a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
So, it's nowhere near what you expected out of Clemson, but they're putting up some points. I mean, that's 100 points in 3. That's not nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, just because the line seems weird to me, I would take Clemson because this is one of those things that the people who are making the line know a little something more than I do.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned or put it that way, because that's kind of something that I'm trying to be more cognizant of as I move along handicapping these games or trying to predict these games or what I think is going to happen. Just where the fishy lines are, right? Like this could be like the fishy line of the week as far as I'm concerned, or one of them. There's another one too that we're going to talk about here in a second that I could also make an argument for. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say, because I feel like you're probably onto something there that the bookmakers probably know a little something that we don't. And I'll say this too, to back up your point. Wake Forest defense, they've been bad, allowing 30 points per game.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson, though, as bad as Wake Forest defense has been, Clemson's 110th in offensive success rate. And DJ, and they've been making some progress, and I agree with you there. DJ is still missing guys. He's still overthrowing guys. I mean, even last week, when they're putting up points, he's missing guys. He's overthrowing guys. That's not going to cut it here against this Wake Forest offense. As good as Clemson's defense can be, I still think Wake Forest offense is going to put up points. And it makes me nervous because it looks like the money is on Wake Forest. Well, at least that's kind of like the popular play is Wake Forest. And everything you hear, but I'm going to go with my gut and say this one is at least a close game. So give me Wake Forest and the points, because they do have a lot to play for here as well. So I like Wake Forest here.
I mean, at this point, Clemson, I mean, they're obviously not playing for the playoff. The ACC overall, they're going to be lucky to get a team into the playoff. So,
yeah, true.
I mean, Wake Forest is their only chance, and
I still don't see that happening.
No, because you got a lot riding on the ACC championship game, but their opponent for the ACC championship game is not going to be anything special. So it puts them in a tough spot. It may be one of those situations where they know they have absolutely no shot unless there's just chaos everywhere, which is possible. We've seen it before. So, I mean, you could see just Wake Forest just putting on a show the last 2 games to be like, hey, we're here. But like I said, this line makes no sense, which makes me lean towards the home team.
Yeah, I could see it. I could honestly see it playing out either way. So
it's at 11 Central Time. I mean, that just it's a big game because it's a top 10 team playing at Clemson, who's been so good these last 6 years. But at 11 o'clock, it just doesn't have that same big game feel that maybe Wake Forest needs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but also, okay, so there's 2 sides of the coin to that, because I could see it from that perspective, and I could also see it from the perspective of maybe this benefits Wake Forest that they are playing at this time frame, because it's not as big of a game. Like, imagine playing Clemson at night with that raucous crowd at a night game, nationally televised huge game at night with that rowdy crowd. I could see it actually benefiting them to play at this 11 o'clock game. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong thinking there, but
I mean, that's right. I mean, these games, that's why betting is so tough.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Yeah, but yeah, like the total does kind of seem a little intriguing to me because, like you said, Wake Forest puts up points, and a good defense can only stop that to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
And with the way Clemson's been scoring the last 3 weeks, I would not be surprised to see that go over. You think so? Points per game, Wake Forest at 44, Clemson gives up 15. You say that maybe averages around, that would average at around 30.
Mm-hmm.
And if Clemson's going to cover that spread, that's 61 points right there. So there you go.
No, I do. I actually do like the over as well in this game. Every Wake Forest game pretty much goes over.
Right.
So,
Get your day started with a nice little over.
yeah, who doesn't love an over early on in the day just to say, hey, I got to see this game score a ton of points and I was right about it.
Energy vampires, that's who. Like the world burn.
Dude, I do like some unders as well. I'm not going to lie. Sorry. People hate me for that, but I've been profitable from it.
That's how you win. I mean, you win by betting. You don't win by betting the overs. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, they jack up these lines because they know everybody's betting the over.
It's because it's more fun. It's a party. The over's a party.
When you hear most people give out, especially like just their prop bets, like I don't know if you look at people's different picks for prop bets throughout the week, even just for NBA and stuff, it's always over to go over this point total, over to go over this, over to go over, and I do the same thing. I look for those opportunities where I can take the over because it's way more fun.
Oh, it's so much more fun. And that's what you're trying to do here is have fun with gambling. Obviously, you want to make money, but it's about having fun.
Yeah. Oh, do well, like it sucks to have to root for no points.
Right.
Anyways, with that said, we'll move on. So it sounds like you got Clemson, I got Wake Forest, and that we both like the over. Let's move on here. We got number 3 Oregon at least in the playoff rankings, and number 23 Utah. Oregon traveling there, and Utah is a -3 favorite. I'm not sure if that line has moved since we hopped on.
Still at 3, yeah. Still at 3.
Still at 3. Yeah, they're laying 3 points. Over under is at 59. Now Utah opened up as a 2.5 point favorite with a 58.5 point total. So that tells me that there's some money that's coming on Utah and also on the over. Now I do the averages thing, as I mentioned before, and I average this out to be basically a 2-point spread. Not a huge difference off the spread, and there's not a huge edge there. I like to have like a 2 or 3 point edge at least until I feel real comfortable with it, and then I'm like really severely looking at it as a potential bet. But I don't know. What do you see from this game? And I'll let you go ahead and talk about this one first.
Just like we talked about with Wake Forest being the ACC's only shot at a team in the playoff, and it's the longest of shots out there, Oregon is the Pac-12's only chance for a playoff. And I'm pretty sure it's all but confirmed that Oregon versus Utah is going to be the Pac-12 championship game, regardless of the outcome of this game. And if Oregon loses even one of those matchups, they're done.
Yeah.
So
they already want them, like people that look at the playoff rankings and all this, because Michigan was ranked higher than Michigan State. People are already asking for Ohio State to be ranked higher than Oregon, even though Oregon beat them and they had the huge matchups.
Right. And I mean, I think people have less of a problem with that rather than Michigan being over Michigan State. But
yeah,
I mean, the play is going to do the talking. I mean, playing at Utah is a tough place to play. They're good. I mean, they're just always a tough team. That's Utah's brand. They're just tough. And the Pac-12 makes no if football overall makes no sense when you're watching it, the Pac-12 makes even less sense. It's the wildest conference. You always have to budget for the stupidest loss. Just Oregon lost to Stanford. In what world do those teams play on the same field and Oregon loses?
I lost money on that game.
So just on the pure fact that this is a must-win, the first of 2 must-wins for Oregon against Utah, I would take the points with Oregon. Yeah, it's going to be a close game. It has to be. I don't see a situation where this is not a close game. And if Utah's able to pull it out, it feels like a last-second play kind of thing. But I think Oregon, if they lose this matchup, it's over. So I think they're going to win this one. I think they have enough motivation. I think this is the one they pull out. They may not pull out the conference championship game, but I think this one they got.
Yeah, so I've been waiting for Oregon to slip up here. I've been wanting to see them lose for a while because, to be honest, after they cost me money against Stanford, I don't want them to win. I'm petty like that. I've been petty. I'm being petty with Oregon, with the Ducks here. But again, we talked about it. Another seamless transition. I mentioned about Ohio State being, ranked ahead of them, and the playoff committee seems to value Oregon over Ohio State when the head-to-head matchups, they don't. They tell us, oh, aside from the games, you look at the stats. And, it just doesn't make that much sense to me because it's like ultimately that's what we're supposed to do as bettors, right? We're supposed to look for the edges. We're supposed to look at which team we bet on. Which team do we think is better? Not the playoff committee. The playoff committee is supposed to look at it, in my opinion, they're supposed to look at it as results-based more so than predictive. And results tell us Michigan State beat Michigan. So I know we're not talking about that game. But anyway, starting with Utah. That game last week against Arizona, that was too close for comfort.
Right.
Yeah, too close for comfort for me. And really, it was Cam Rising. And this offense has been pretty good, really, over the last 3 games, too. Their 3-game win streak. They're averaging 44.7 points per game. He took them down towards the end of that game, 75 yards. It was 31-29 that they just barely led that game. And then he took them down the field, 8-24 late in the game. And, that was a 1-win Arizona team, though.
Right. They have been playing with some juice. Again, I mean, you think for Utah, is that a sign of things that you don't want to see? The answer is probably.
Right. And that's kind of where I fell to, Joe. The answer is probably, in my opinion, and maybe Oregon's not as good as the record shows, and I don't believe that they're as good as the record shows. But Utah isn't terrible against the run either, but they're worse than Oregon. Behind Brown, he could throw the ball and run. Travis Dye and Byron Caldwell. I mean, I think they really have the edge offensively here versus Utah's defense. I agree. And we know how much of a havoc wreaker Kayvon Thibodeau is on Oregon's side of the ball.
Yep.
I mean, a future first-round pick. So, top pick. So, I mean, I'm not quite sure there's a big enough edge to bet aside here, but I got to say, the value to me is in Oregon if I'm going to – and I think I might wind up there as we get closer. I'm hoping to get a hook, to be honest with you, that more Utah money comes in and I get a hook. I think if it's still at 3 now. This is the type of game that Oregon shows up for. It's not the letdown spot that it normally is. Like when they let down to a team that's like
Stanford. Exactly.
Not in a big game like this. So I think I will take the points here with the Ducks.
I agree, and like you said, you're hoping for that hook. But there's still value. I mean, they're the underdog and a must-win situation to keep their playoff chances alive. You're getting a team on a playoff team on a must-win at plus money. I feel like you have to take that.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, how disrespected do they feel coming in as an underdog, even as a road team, when they've had the better record-wise season than Utah?
I agree.
So, anyways, with that said, looks like we're on the same side there. Number 21, Arkansas at Alabama. Number 2, Alabama. 20.5 point favorite, Alabama. Over under 58.5. Joe, I guess I'll start this one off here.
Yep.
On paper, Bama's got the edge just about every department. I mean, we know the games don't take place on paper, right? I mean, you look at it on paper, that's exactly what it is. Unless you're the playoff committee, as we've already said. They look at it on paper, it sounds like Bama thrashed New Mexico State 59-3. But I mean, that's New Mexico State, right? they can thrash just about anybody, though. I mean, KJ Jefferson as a dual threat, he's been great. He hasn't killed it through the air necessarily this year, but he's been good on the ground as well. But you remove that Georgia game for Arkansas, which I believe Bama is worse than.
Right.
I think it's safe to say that at this point in the season, at least. I mean, Bama would compete with Georgia, and potentially even they could beat them, which they're going to have to do to make the playoff. I believe
Right.
They're going to have to beat them.
Right.
We'll see. I mean, that's not for sure either, because we know there's a way that playoff committee could still put them in there as a 2-loss team, which I would hate. But there's an outside chance that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas, Pig Suey would love nothing more than to go to Bama and knock them off and just remove all doubt. Like you give this 2-loss team, if they beat, let's say Arkansas beats, for a second, I want to pause where my thought process was going for a second. Let's say Arkansas comes in here and knocks off this Bama team. And let's say it's still Bama versus Georgia in the SEC championship game, and Bama beats Georgia. Are they in?
Georgia?
No. Is Bama in?
Oh, if Bama loses
tomorrow. 2-loss team, if they lose, you're right. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but like, let's just put it out there that it's a possibility.
I think that's the only way they do make it as a 2-loss team is they would have to win the SEC. But
right.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, I don't expect Alabama to lose tomorrow.
I don't either.
20 and a half obviously is the better question, and that's what we're here to talk about. But Georgia at the current moment is head and shoulders better than Alabama. So, but it's hard to tell until those two teams get on the same field. But at the end of the day, would it shock you to see Alabama sneak in as a 2-loss team? Absolutely not.
Not really, just because of how favored they are, and everybody, they want to see Bama in there every year.
Especially in that situation where they do beat an undefeated Georgia team in the SEC championship game. I think ultimately most people would end up being okay with it. The only reason you wouldn't be okay with it is Cincinnati. I think that's the biggest gripe, which maybe we could talk about in honorable mentions for games this weekend is Cincinnati. But it's just a unique situation the last 2 years where, those group of 5 teams are kind of getting screwed, and whether that's right or not.
Right.
It's tough. There is no right answer unless you're a fan of a group of 5 team.
It is tough. I mean, I'll say this. I hate to be that guy that's just like, oh, Bama wins every year. I don't want to see Bama in there. But there are some deserving teams, right? Especially if they lose to Georgia, it's over to me, in my opinion.
I agree.
They do not deserve to be in there over a potential 1-loss Notre Dame team, over a potential 0-loss Cincinnati team, over a potential, you go down the list.
Yeah, 1-loss Wake Forest.
No, they just don't deserve it. But
exactly.
But if we're looking at this game, I mean, I talked about KJ Jefferson, and you remove the Georgia loss, which I believe, every other contest, though, Arkansas has been in, basically, other than maybe Auburn. The problem is Bama stops the run well, and Arkansas doesn't get to the quarterback much. I mean, luckily, Bama gives up 2.4 sacks per game. So they don't exactly protect the quarterback well, and I think Arkansas has a chance to keep this game close. And if it gets to 21.5, like if we get 21.5, not 21. I'm not trying to push. If we get 21.5, I'll probably bet Arkansas here. I will. But because Arkansas runs the ball at the 6th highest rate of any team in the country, and Bama stops to run pretty well, 3rd fewest rushing yards per game allowed.
Mm-hmm.
I think the bet here for me is under 58.5. I see a lot of clock burning. I see a smash mouth type of contest. I could see Bama covering the spread with like a 3-touchdown win, but I do see an under here. So what do you think, Joe?
I think it's a rout. I think Bama absolutely destroys them. I think it has nothing to do with Arkansas. I think it's the situation where they got to hype themselves up, especially if they lose. If they're, obviously they plan on beating Georgia. You're not going to find somebody in Alabama who doesn't think they're going to beat Georgia, but they got to plan. They got to route these last 2 weeks to prepare just in case they lose, especially if they lose close to Georgia. I think it's a route. I think whoever Alabama is going to play, it just happens to be Arkansas. It's going to be a route. So I would take Alabama.
Do you still think the under's in play, or do you think it's such a rout and they give up some points to Arkansas as well?
I think the way you talked about how Arkansas likes to run the ball, you could see a lot of 3-and-outs that way. You could see a first down run, 1-2 yard gain. For maybe you could see them behind the chains easily. So that wouldn't shock me. And Bama, they're more than fine with sitting on it, I would assume. But I don't know, because again, you're looking at a team that's trying to get style points.
Yeah. So
it's tough, and I'm just like we mentioned before. I'm not much of an unders better, but again, as a lifetime loser, betting the over, what does my opinion really matter?
I mean, it sucks to say that. It always sucks to take the under. I agree there, and let's be honest, there are certain times where I'm just like, I don't care, I'm betting the over, and I could be wrong, but at least I'm going to be having fun watching this game. Like certain prime games, but it's like it always feels like a lot of these big games, that's when the under happens because there's so many people coming in last minute on the over. And then the line gets moved up even further, and then people are still betting the over because they heard, oh, the over's a good bet. The over's a good bet all week. And then they get screwed because they come in last minute. And it's like, dude, you missed your opportunity on the over. The closing line value was gone 3 days ago.
As a team with Bama that averages 44 points, you have to, you got to factor in maybe at least 14 for Arkansas. And that puts you right at 58. I mean, that's tough. I don't see a reason why Alabama can't get to 40 against Arkansas. So it's tough.
I think the only reason why I say this, and also it goes back to the amount that Arkansas rushes the ball, and I don't want to cut you off. I could see a little bit more conservative play from Nick Saban, and I don't think that he's going to let his foot off the gas at all. I think they're going to try to put as many points up as they possibly can, but I don't think that they're going to be able to do as much downfield, and I could be wrong about that. I think there will be a lot of check down, a lot of check down passes here from Bryce Young. And we look at last week, even against New Mexico State. New Mexico State's just horrible. They're going to give up explosive play after explosive play. You're going to be able to do whatever you want against them. I mean, Bryce Young was near perfect. He was 21 of 23. Last week. You could probably do that here against Arkansas, maybe, but I don't think you're going to get as many yards, even in the running game, and you're not going to be set up in as many good field position. You're not going to be in as good a field position as you were last week, I don't believe, against New Mexico State. Although, like you said, you could see some 3-and-outs. So the under does make me a little nervous, especially at the points you made. But I just have a feeling that this game's going to be I could see 52 points. I think is kind of where I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, I can see any situation. So, but I would just as a classic over better, it's just tough taking unders, man.
It is. I know. I feel you. Let's move on here. We got to get into some NFL action.
Yep.
We've actually been a little bit overboard here with the college. Any honorable mentions you have for college bets that you like at this point?
I think you get the Cincinnati SM. So Cincinnati's they're 10-point favorites. It's been talked about. They need style points. They haven't covered in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So at what point? I mean, they're undefeated, but they're on the outside looking in at number 5. They need to win, and they need to win convincingly. Will they do it? I have no idea. Do I want them to do it? Absolutely. SMU's a good football team, but at some point, Cincinnati's just got to put their meat on the table. So I would like Cincinnati even at the 10.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't like it, Joe. I don't like it. I'm not betting against it, but I don't like it because I feel like SMU could. This is a game we've seen a bad Cincinnati team now. A good team, but I mean,
right?
We haven't seen them fully step up to that potential, right. And they've just been letting worse teams than SMU hang around.
Exactly, they haven't been able to separate.
Yeah, it scares me.
I agree, but at some point they just got to do it, man. And I think everybody and the mother in this situation loves SMU.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly like Purdue last week.
I know it makes you nervous.
So it's one of those. I'm sure SMU is going to be a super Joe Public pick.
You're probably on the right side of this.
Yeah,
to be honest, because of that reason alone, I just won't find myself. I'm not taking either side on this.
Yeah, can't lose that way.
That's just one I just left off. My honorable mention, I think, is Wyoming here, +6, taking on Utah State. I think Wyoming's been playing better football lately. They've had some contests where they've been in, and it just hasn't quite worked out. And just teams that they played close, and just I don't know. I think Wyoming here, Utah State should not be favored by this much, in my opinion. This is going to be more of a smash-mouth game. I could see Wyoming winning it outright. So if you're going to give me 6 points, I found I know it's consensus, I believe, is like 5.5. I'm not sure if that's right now, but you can find some 6s out there. I was able to look right before we got on here for this game, and I like Wyoming getting a touchdown. I do.
I would lean towards you. I can't say I've watched much of Wyoming this year, so.
Well, I'm just a weirdo. Nobody wants to watch Wyoming, let's be honest. They're not a terrible football team, though. Not a great record. But anyways, let's move on here. That was college. I think we have we broke down quite a bit there, even in just 4, 5, 6 games that we talked about. The 2 briefly that we touched on. We got I don't know. Are you a Bears fan, Joe? I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this.
So I'm not. It's nothing like how I am with the Cubs, but I'm a little bit newer into being a Bears fan. But I am definitely a Bears fan. I do root for them, but I'm not I don't take the losses to heart, not just yet.
Okay, so I definitely take the losses to heart. And I will be breaking down this game a little bit more in depth with a couple buddies with the here coming up on the Bears on Tap show. But and I appreciate that you're a Bears fan, because at least we can have some pain together now. Now that you're like feeling it, this has been like my life of like feeling it with both the Cubs and I don't know if I've mentioned this, but and for anybody listening or watching, me and Joe have done Cubs shows together and talked Cubs baseball quite a bit with Cubs on Tap. And so it's always fun to talk our Cubs and now our Bears.
Mm-hmm.
Before we talk about this game, by the way, it's the Ravens traveling to Soldier Field to take on the Bears. I would just like to remind everybody, if you're looking, because this is a game personally, Joe, I don't know about you, but I should be at that game on Sunday. I want to be at that game, and I don't think I'll be able to. But if I were to go to the game, this is what I would do, right? I would be if you're looking for seats, like if you want to go to the game like me, if you're looking to buy tickets to the next big game and enjoy what all Chicago sports have to offer, go check out vividseats.com. The prices are fair and the customer service is top notch. They even have an app so you can buy or sell directly off your phone. On any order over $100, use our promo code ONTAP to get $10 off your order. Again, that's ONTAP. Promo code, and for $10 off your order, Vivid Seats. Life happens live. And it's going to happen live on Sunday. We got a noon kick between the Ravens and Bears. We'll start out. I'll leave it at this, and then I'll let you give your thoughts. The Bears are beat up defensively. Like, there's no way around it. The Bears are beat up defensively. It's going to take a big game, in my opinion, on defense from Roquan Smith, even as a blitzer. Like, I think he's going to have to get it done both ways, not just – they're going to have to use him as a blitzer in this game and then running a lot of spy on Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
for them to stop this Ravens offense, which honestly was not looking good against the Dolphins on the last time we saw them on Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
That's a short week, though. I'm willing to forgive that a little bit. I think with Khalil Mack out now, just having foot surgery, out for the season. Got no Akeem Hicks, no Danny Trevathan. We got Eddie Jackson questionable. Allen Robinson doubtful on the offensive side, but that defensive side is really brutalized here. Also, at the way Justin Fields played in the second half of against the Steelers, I mean, just incredible. And that's 2 weeks in a row, really, in the second half that he's kind of come alive and that was his best performance by far that we've seen in his young career so far. The way he closed out the game against the Niners, obviously the week before, is great. That Steelers defense is better than this mediocre Ravens one. Like, I'm just going to put that out there. The Ravens are 25th in overall defense DVOA. I don't know if the Bears are going to win this game, but I truly, especially with all the injuries, I truly believe there will be points scored in this game. Someone is putting up 30-plus points. Maybe both of them are putting up 30-plus points, even without Allen Robinson. I could see it. Even if he doesn't play. I don't know. Marquise Goodwin get deep on the secondary. You got Justin Fields making plays with his legs, just throwing darts to Cole Kmet.
Mm-hmm.
I could see it happen.
I've liked what I've seen from Damiere Byrd, too. I liked Damiere Byrd when he was with the Patriots. Yeah, there's no reason why he can't have a nice game, especially in Allen Robinson's absence. But I'm going to disagree with you. I think the Bears are going to have a hard time putting up points. And it's tough. It's always tough talking about your favorite team.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like I mentioned before, I'm not quite there yet where it's like Bears, Bears, Bears. I love the Bears, but I'm not quite there. I'm at a spot where I can kind of see. I feel like I see that it's just this classic spot where you have Justin Fields on Monday night, looked absolutely amazing. I was hyped up. They lost. You're happy with that loss. And then they go into a bye week, and your expectation coming out of a bye week is always ramped up.
Mm-hmm.
So after a primetime game where Fields looked really good, it's a classic. The game will not meet your expectations kind of day. And I don't really think you're wrong that maybe a team was going to put up 30 points, but I think the Bears might struggle to get to 10. So if anything, I would like the under, and I would definitely like Baltimore. But again, it is tough betting against your favorite team. And it's hard to take that look in the mirror and just be like, they really do stink. They're not great, especially they're missing their best players. They're just, Allen Robinson's kind of disappeared a little bit, but he came alive a little bit in Pittsburgh late in the game. But I mean, it just comes down to you're missing your best players, and the Ravens are just. I just have a feeling they're just going to absolutely pound the ground against the Bears, which would lead me towards the under. That's the way I see it.
Okay, let me stop you right there. So I'm saving a little bit for later, but I see a route, and I'll just say this. I see a route where they are forced to throw the ball. The Ravens are forced to throw the ball, and the Bears try to take away all they can in the running game. Now let's look at the running backs, right? They don't have the greatest running backs. They just have Lamar Jackson as a running back. Really. That's really what it comes down to. I see a route where they try to do all they can to take that away, and they're forced to throw the ball. And then that's where I think the quick points come in, because I think the secondary can get beat with the Bears. So all I'm asking for, if it's the Ravens that put up 30 points, all I'm asking for on the Bears side, 17 points.
Right.
And I think they can do that. I think they can muster that. So I'm not against what your prediction is with the Ravens here. I am totally against the and I definitely understand that part of being maybe a letdown spot here after the big Monday night game. But we also have to remember they lost that game too.
Right.
So, there's also that factor coming in where, hey, they're not really like settled on anything. They're feeling good because they lost the game at the end of the day. And I don't think Justin Fields is the type of player that's like, I'm happy with losing because he's been a winner his entire career. So I'm looking at this and I don't know, man. It's one of my favorite bets of the week. I'll tell you that. I love the over in this match.
I'd be happy to be wrong. I would be happy to be wrong here.
Yeah. So with that said, and hopefully, obviously, we both are rooting for the Bears to win.
Of course. Yeah, I'm not taking the Ravens in any situation.
No, absolutely not. Well, let's move on here. We got more NFC North teams squaring off against each other. We got the Packers -1.5 at the Vikings, over under 47. Green Bay opened -2, and the total was 50.5, I believe. So that total came down quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Joe, kick us off here. What do you think? What are your thoughts, and what do you see?
The Packers are good, man. Packers are real good, but at the same time, the Vikings have been a team that has just been hard to peg. I listened to the Herd every day on the way home, and he said something. It's the Vikings have led by 7 points in every single game this year, which is absolutely insane because I'm pretty sure they're under 500. So that just talk about something that doesn't add up. He also mentioned that Kirk Cousins in his career against the Packers is 6-7, which is incredible considering you assuming 13, if not all 13 games have been played against Aaron Rodgers. That's an incredible number. So you would like the Vikings' chances here, but I think the Packers are just different this year. There's just something about them. They've been able to win ugly, and every single Vikings game has been ugly, and the Vikings continually find a way to lose. So I would lean towards the Packers here, even without Aaron Jones.
Man, we are on the opposite sides again. It's been like this now for a few picks,
right?
So, and I like it because it makes it more entertaining. It makes it more enjoyable. At least for me as a viewer and listener, I would like that. Not just to disagree, but you make both arguments, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think Rodgers returned last week. I mean, he did return last week, but it wasn't the reason why the Packers won.
Right.
So I'm looking at that, and that defensive play is much better. Right. Give credit to the defense. The passing defense has been much better. Even without top cornerback Jair Alexander, they've been able to actually play pretty well in the secondary. I mean, you look at even Kevin King last week had a pretty good game. And that's Kevin King, like one of the worst cornerbacks, in my opinion, it has been in the league. Like just horrible. And you got Eric Stokes returning, 8th in pass DVOA, 3rd fewest passing yards allowed, just over 200 yards per game, 3rd fewest passer rating allowed. Like this, getting the quarterback for them this year has been big for them too. Adrian Amos in the secondary, former Bear, can't forget about him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they've had some playmakers. However, this Minnesota offensive line has actually been pretty good in pass protection, and that's something I really looked at. Minnesota's tied with Tampa Bay for the fewest sacks allowed, and they are 2nd in adjusted sack rate. And Green Bay is getting to the quarterback up near the top in sacks. I mean, excuse me. But when you look at the advanced numbers too, which might be more predictive, they are only 20th in adjusted sack rate for the Packers and 23rd in pressure rate. Their run defense still leaves a lot to be desired, in my opinion. I mean, we got 24th in rush DVOA. I'm looking at this, and I think Dalvin Cook has a field day running the ball like he did last year, the last time these teams matched up, versus Green Bay. Cook had 226 total yards and 4 touchdowns. And then I'm also looking at these weapons that Minnesota has. And can Kevin King really duplicate what he did? Now keep in mind, they played Russell Wilson in Seattle. That was Russell Wilson's first game back. There was some rust there, in my opinion. Right. So it wasn't all like this is just terrific defense. They did play really good defense, but they also didn't have a running game. They also just had Russell Wilson just coming back from injury. You got Justin Jefferson, you got Adam Thielen, Tyler Conklin. He's making some noise as the tight end there. I think this is a good spot for Minnesota at home, and I think they win this one outright. I've got Vikings money line here.
I think I think you've talked me into the over 47 here. It seems kind of low for the Vikings, who always kind of seem to be in shootouts, even though, somewhat recently they haven't. They had 34-31 against Baltimore, 27-20 last week against the Chargers. I can kind of see this as a track meet. And ultimately, as time is winding down, who do you trust more?
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Rodgers. So I'm going to take the Packers.
The one reason why I'll push against that just a little bit of the over, only because Green Bay moves at a turtle's pace. And not that Minnesota's like super fast either. Green Bay moves at a turtle pace as far as pace of play. Like they are one of the bottom feeders. And I would have to check what Minnesota's at, but I know they're not like super fast. So that's one of the things that bother me, or not bothers me, but like makes me a little bit wary about. But you're right, the total is real low here and I also think like divisional matchups, I worry about like maybe more of a slugfest being at play. But if Dalvin Cook is ripping off 50+ yard rushes, it doesn't matter. Like they're gonna score quicker than normal.
Right.
So I don't know, man. I do like Minnesota here though a lot.
You're right. I do like that we're a little contrarian. We're against each other. I like that. Can't wait to drive up to Rockford on Monday and just throw it in your face.
But you know what? I hope you drive up here just so we can have a couple beers. But
right, definitely.
If you want to throw it in my face, that's fine. Just don't throw the beer in my face. So that's whatever works. But no, man. Yeah, I love that we're on both different sides of this because it makes it fun as we're viewing the games, and we can kind of talk shit to each other back and forth via text message or whatever. So, but yeah, let's move on here. We spent a little bit of time on that. We got Cowboys at Chiefs. Chiefs laying 2.5 points at home, and the over/under is 56. Just an outrageous number for the NFL. I'll start it off. Fireworks. Like this matchup screams shootout to me, and not just because of the total. It's just because of what these two offenses can do and what one of them has been doing, and the other one seems to be figuring out with the Chiefs. Like last week against the Raiders, it's they played more to their standards that we've been accustomed to seeing over the years behind Patrick Mahomes and this offense. You've got disgustingly talented weapons as far as like the Cheetah goes. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, one of the best receiving tight ends in the game. And then on the other side, Dak has all these weapons. He's got Zeke out of the backfield, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup.
Amari Cooper is out with COVID.
Oh, is Cooper out? Okay. I didn't
that was today.
Okay, that presents – wow. Now I want to look at Michael Gallup's prop bets.
Right.
I wish I would have known that before jumping on here. That sucks because Michael Gallup's prop bets just became really appeasing to me or appealing. Might have to look into that for sure if the lines haven't already jumped. But I don't know. I just look at this 41 points against the Raiders on Sunday night last week for the Chiefs. We know how awful their defense can be, and it's not going to do them any favors here against the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys are first in points per game, and they just dropped 43 on the Falcons' head last week. Cowboys defensively, they've been led by Micah Parsons. He's got 6 sacks, having an outstanding year. And Trayvon Diggs, a cornerback, he leads the league with 8 interceptions. So, I mean, that said, I've seen Diggs be overly aggressive at times. And if he lines up against the Cheetah here, which I expect him probably to most of the time against Tyreek Hill, I see some double moves in the works. I see Tyreek Hill's speed potentially burning Trayvon Diggs. There's a chance he gives up a big play or two deep. That said, I'm going with Travis Kelce to get an anytime touchdown. Before we jumped on, it was minus 115 I found on one book, which I hate laying juice for an anytime touchdown, but Kelce only has 5 touchdowns this year, which is low for him to get. And he hasn't really been targeted as much in the red zone. I think that's a big reason why this season, and obviously the offense has struggled. Especially with him coming off the big game, though, 8 catches, 119 yards, playing a little bit of a narrative here. But, Kelce with only 1 touchdown in the last 5 games, I think he scores a touchdown this week. Like he's too big of a factor in the red zone if you use him. and I expect them to get down there against this Cowboys defense. Just the way they were performing last week too. Building on that, I like Kelce as an anytime touchdown. That's my bet.
Mhm.
What do you have, Joe?
I agree with you about Travis Kelce. Hearing that he's only scored 5 touchdowns this season is shocking because that man is the biggest threat as a tight end in the league right now, I would say. But this is a big game where I think we're going to understand what the Chiefs are a little bit. I think we all know what the Cowboys are. I think we trust the Cowboys. And I'm not sure if that trust, at least for me personally, is back with the Chiefs. They absolutely beat up on the Raiders, but the Raiders have also beat up on themselves. They have recently had to release both of their first round picks from 2020. We don't have to get into the situation as to why, and they're on an interim coach. That's all those things I feel like played a big factor into a eventual blowout loss to the Chiefs. I think this is a big week to see what the Chiefs are. They simplified everything. You saw Darrell Williams out of the backfield have over 100 yards receiving. And I think that's I don't know if that was just a game plan against the Raiders, or if that's something that they're planning on continuing to just simplify things for Mahomes. But this is one of those games where I would bet the over and just enjoy it. Just enjoy this game. This is the biggest matchup of the NFL Sunday. Bet the over and enjoy the game. Hope for 60 points apiece. Make it like that Monday night game from like 3 years ago with the Chiefs and the Rams.
Yeah.
Just watch points galore. And I loved what you said about possible matchup between Trayvon Diggs and Tyreek Hill. Trayvon Diggs is a gambler. And Tyreek Hill can burn, man. So don't be surprised to see him get burned on a couple double moves. So if I was going to pick a side, I would probably take the Cowboys just because of that trust factor. But it's a tough one to peg, man. I might just enjoy this one.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I had the most difficult time. That's why I had to look elsewhere with the props. And I mean, of course, if anybody's been watching the show or is curious, I do an article every week. At least I try to every week, a prop bet article. I mean, Joe, you're probably aware of that, but I really look for these props anyways. But this game was so hard to decide as far as like spread and total wise. That total, I want to bet the over. Like I could easily see like a 30 points on each side type of game. Each team putting up 30 plus points. But the problem is once you start reaching that 56 plus game in the NFL, like I just have an extremely hard time, and 56 is kind of a key number. Like
bet the over and be a part of history.
Yeah, right. I should honestly. Yeah, it's so tough for me. I don't know. We'll see how ballsy I'm feeling once we get to Sunday, and I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, put a 25 on it or something. I don't know. We'll see how I'm feeling, but as of right now, I just can't do it just because I hate the high total like that.
Understandable.
But yeah, man, I'm with you. I think we will see a classic shootout here. That's kind of my thoughts on that.
Mm-hmm.
And to back up your point too, I mean, the Cowboys haven't exactly been great against opposing running backs too either, as far as allowing receptions. They've given up 50 catches for 347 yards to opposing running backs. So that's something to look at again, possibly with Darrell Williams there. So just to kind of emphasize what you were talking about. Anyways, let's move on here. We've got a little bit of catching up to do, but we're not far away. We've got the Cardinals here laying 2.5 on the road against Seattle, taking on the Seahawks. Over under at 48 right now is what I saw it at. I don't know. What do you think? What do you make of this one? What's your lean and what's your outlook for this one?
So I think this game is completely dependent on if Kyler Murray plays. I think the Cardinals have been extremely smart with him. Mm-hmm. They don't want him to go out there and hurt himself even more because they've built themselves a nice cushion. They don't need to go out there and compete. They don't need to go out there and win necessarily to keep themselves in the playoff hunt because because of the way they played early in the season. So I think if Kyler Murray's playing, I think that's a good sign. And if Kyler Murray plays, I would have that as my bet of the week. So, but again, if he's not playing, it's tough because Russell Wilson looked very bad last week. Just the Seahawks in general did not look very great last week at Green Bay. And you kind of question, is Russell Wilson fully healthy? I mean, you just don't know. So I think if Kyler Murray's playing, you absolutely take that 2.5. If he's not, you have to question it a little bit.
I'm right there with you. I honestly think, and this is the hard part, if Kyler Murray plays, I believe this line's going to jump.
Definitely. I think this line is accounted for. I just assuming. I think this line is accounted for him to play, and I think if he's not playing, you'll see maybe 2.5 for the Seahawks. That's just a guess, because it is at Seattle.
Oh, I definitely see if he's out, the line's moving the other direction too. I think that's why that's why I'm saying though. I think it's like an in-between set line, in my opinion. I think they did this on purpose. They put this there because they weren't sure about Kyler. Despite it doesn't sound like it's a for sure thing at all that he plays.
Right.
And that's what I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, I don't know. I mean, I think they're pretty much doomed. You got DeAndre Hopkins out this week. Kyler Murray, he's a game time decision. If he plays, how good is he going to be? Like, is he fully healthy? Like, that's kind of my concern there too. And I can't say definitively that he is.
See, and that's my point. I'm saying I think the Cardinals have been smart with him, and I think they're going to continue being smart with him. And if he's not good to go, he's not. If he's not anywhere near good to go, he's not going to play. If he's playing, I feel like he is as close to being 100% as he can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're gonna. That's the only way they let him play. And if they do let him play, I think that I would feel really confident in that number.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, when you put it like that, it really does make a lot of sense. By the way, not to intervene here, but it looks like C.J. Stroud's passing yards went up even from the book that I took it at since we hopped on here, which kind of ticks me off because that was going to be my lock of the week for college. But anyways, not to stray too far away from the point here of what we were talking about. My gut tells me the Seahawks, like they're going to start to figure out a little bit here but Pete Carroll just seems to be insistent on running the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And now you got Alex Collins banged up. You got Chris Carson, who was just announced that he's going to miss the rest of the season with, I think it was a neck injury. I could be wrong on that.
Neck.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, and they were just shut out against Green Bay. Like we talked about with the Green Bay and when we were discussing the Green Bay Vikings game. Wilson was a little bit rusty there. So, I don't know. You got Kyler's this game time decision. My gut tells me Seattle figures it out. But if Pete Carroll's going to try to run the ball like hardcore against a team that's top 10 against the run, Seattle also, and like I said, not having Carson, possibly not having Collins. I mean, he's banged up. We don't know. I haven't seen exactly if he's going to play or not, but I know he missed like a practice or something this week. Potentially, this game just screams under to me. Like
I agree.
Screams under. And I know it's 48, not an extremely high total. It just screams under. That's my bet for this game for sure.
I agree. Definitely.
So with that said, Joe, do you have any honorable mentions or anything else you wanted to talk about with the NFL slate?
Just quickly, I think it's a big number. I think it's the biggest number of the week in the NFL. But the Browns, it's at -12 right now, at home against the Lions. Nick Chubb's back, and I think that's all you need to know. They're going to win by 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
They're going to win by 2 touchdowns. Baker Mayfield's banged up. They're hardly going to need him. You know, the Lions are coming off an emotional game where they were not able to get the win out, but they tied, and I feel like that's their win. So, you know, I just think the Browns are just going to kind of come out and just stroll to at least a 2 touchdown win. And especially Jared Goff is questionable to play. He hasn't practiced. And their backup, the name is escaping me, but he has very limited NFL experience. He's been taking most of the first team snaps this week.
Yeah. No, yeah, you make a lot of great points there. I could easily see the Browns smashing them, wiping the floor with them this week, especially coming off a tough loss last week. I mean, you got pretty much destroyed by the Patriots.
Yep.
So you're looking at this as this team's much better than that. They just played a good team and a well-coached team. Not saying that the Lions aren't well-coached, but they don't even compare talent-wise to really any team. I mean, they fight a lot of weeks, but I like that call. It is a lot of points, but I still like that call. Honorable mentions for me, I just like the Bengals -1. I'm not going to go into too big a detail here. I just really believe the Bengals are the much better team in this spot. Like, all across the board. We saw what happened last week against the Chiefs. I mean, I just don't see the Bengals are going to – I know they've had some struggles too, but this team can do pretty much whatever they want, I think, in the passing game against this Raiders team. And I don't care. -1, I think it's a gift. Anything under a field goal, I think, is a gift. So that's my honorable mention of the week.
I like it.
Final spot here. This is pretty much it that we have lined up for anybody listening, watching. Crack 'em locks of the week. Joe, I'll start with you. Let's start with in college. What is your crack 'em lock of the week for college football?
It's a game we talked about. I think Alabama -20.5. I think it's going to be a rout. I'm sure it'll be a public pick, but you don't get rich betting against Alabama. And I'm going to get rich betting on Alabama. I think they're going to rout them. I think it'll be a pretty easy win. You're not going to hear much about it because you expect it.
I could definitely see it. Like I said, I was more on the side of the under in that game, but I could definitely see them winning by more than 3 touchdowns. Like what's a route? I think like 3 touchdowns you cover. Like what's a route?
Right. You're right because 21 points you would say is a route, but if they're only covering by half a point, is that really it's kind of expected?
Right.
But I guess I was going under the assumption that 21 points is a route.
It is a route in this sense though, because you would win your bet, but like it'd be a sweat, right?
Right.
It would still be a route technically. Though.
I think it'll be a somewhat not very stressful at least 21 point victory. I'll just put it that way.
That's fair. That's definitely fair. No, I could see it happening. I could see it happening. For college, for me, I mean the CJ Stroud passing yards, that was actually my lock, believe it or not. Before I saw that it's jumped, I'm sure at some books you can still get it below 320 passing yards and take the over on that. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I would still do that, like absolutely, even if you can't get 311.5, which is what I got. And I feel great about it now because that's like extreme closing line value.
What did it go up to?
I think on DraftKings anyways, it was at 324.5.
So almost 10 yards.
That's more than 10 yards.
Was it 15?
Yeah, it's about 13 yards right there. So, I mean, I feel great about that closing line value, but I honestly, and you know what? I'm going to make that my lock and just hope that you can find that under 320. Anything under 320 against Michigan State, CJ Stroud, I believe, even if they will have success running the ball as well, which I do think they will, I think CJ Stroud goes over 320 this week. And I would even feel comfortable personally taking it as far as like 325. Like what it's at right now, 324.5 on DraftKings. I would take it over that. That's probably as far as I would go though. And I'll just leave it at that. What do you have for the NFL? For
the NFL? I'm between 2. The one we just talked about with the Browns -12, but I also like Carolina -3.5. I think Cam Newton's not what he used to be, but he's just going to provide just an insane amount of juice to that team, and they just routed a Kyler Murray-less Cardinals team, and and Washington is coming off a big win against Tampa. I think if you're looking at those two games, I have more belief that Carolina is much better than what Washington did last week against Tampa Bay. And I think Cam just comes out and just provides enough juice where they can cover that 3.5 number. So since we already talked about the Browns game, I'll just nut up and take 3.5 with the Panthers against Washington.
Hey, you're giving the people more picks.
Yeah.
So I think that's great because what's better than more picks? Like, you want to have a little bit of something on. I wouldn't say each of these games because you don't want to go over the top and just have bets spread out. I know people that are like that. They just bet the entire board.
Mm-hmm.
And there's times where I'm not going to say I haven't done it. I have done it, and I just trust my process that, like, I'll come out better. I'll be higher than 50% on the games than most weeks. So I can see why people do that also. But it does take a lot of time, it does take a lot of research, and I think having like a specific amount of games that you bet on is the best strategy. Like, if we're just talking overall strategy. Anyways, my crack 'em lock of the week for NFL, I had 3 different selections that I could have went with here, and I'll just kind of list them all off, but I'm going to give you my best one. So I like the Bengals -1. I like the Seahawks game to go under, and I like the Bears over. Those are like 3 of my favorites. My crack 'em lock of the week will be Seattle and Arizona going under. I just don't see any way around it. This game is going to go under. The Seahawks, they don't run at an extremely fast pace, and I can't imagine that Arizona is going to want to in the condition that Kyler's in, being a game-time decision, unless they're really being dishonest here and they know the status of him and they think he's really just going to suit up. I don't think that they're going to be pushing it super hard with him this first week back. And even better, if it's Colt McCoy getting announced as a starter, it's exactly what's happening with that line.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to go straight down to possibly even 45 or something like that, so or lower. So I think if you can grab that under now, I would do that, and that's going to be my lock of the week.
Awesome.
So Joe, any other? This has been fun, man. Has been good.
It's been good to get back on the mic, but I unfortunately I do got to get out of here. But it was a pleasure. Good luck to everybody who was tailing us. Joe,
absolutely, man. I'll just shout out the handles real quick. Anybody listening and watching, follow on at OnTap Sportsnet, and you can follow Joe at Joe Marras. It's at Joe on Tap. Actually,
it is at Joe on Tap. I did change it.
Yeah, and then follow me if you would be so kindly at the Riot 326. And man, you can find all your. We've got sports articles up all the time. We've got even beer reviews up. We've got all Chicago sports articles and podcasts at ontapsportsnet.com. Be sure to check out vividseats.com and betrivers.com as well. I don't know if I mentioned this, but you could use the promo code ONTAP to get $10 off for BetRivers as well, or first-time deposit match, I believe. Anyways, mixed up the 2 promo codes. You know where to find us. And that's it for this week. It's been fun, and we'll talk next week. Good luck.